Hi, everyone. Hi. Oh, look at that. Okay, so you may be wondering why I'm holding a microphone, and that is so nothing is coming out through the speakers, and this is because we also have folks on a live stream, all right? And so in order for them to hear me and the actors, we're going to be using mics, but you're not going to hear anything out of the speakers, okay? So we just want you to know that there's nothing wrong with the sound. It's for the live stream, okay? My name is Joe Salvatore, and I'm your host for That's Not a Partisan Feeling, That's Patriotic, okay? A Portraits U.S. Election 2024 event, okay? It's a long title. The show won't be that long, but the title is long, okay? And we are celebrating this evening with this performance, Constitution Day. So Constitution Day, folks are like, what's Constitution Day? Constitution Day is a federally mandated recognition of the signing of the Constitution, or the adoption of the United States Constitution, and it's normally observed on September 17th, which is the date in 1787 that delegates to the Constitutional Convention signed the document in Philadelphia. So that was yesterday, but we're celebrating it today. So thank you for being here with us tonight in the theater, and thank you for those of you that are on the live stream broadcast with us from lots of different places. So we really appreciate that you're here with us tonight. Tonight, you're going to hear from folks from across the United States sharing their thoughts about the United States presidency, all right? And so notice I said not about the election, right, but about the United States presidency. We're in an election year, and we thought that it would be interesting to ask folks what they think about the presidency as an institution, all right? And you know that the presidency, the executive branch of the government, is part of the U.S. Constitution. It's Article 2, right? Does anybody know how many words there are in Article 2 of the Constitution? I'm going to be doing this all night, asking you to respond to me. So, like, any thoughts, guesses, random guesses? Okay, higher.
76.
Okay, great. We're still way under.
500.
Yeah, double that. It's, yeah, very good. It's 1,027 words in Article 2. I was curious because, you know, we put a lot of weight on this role of the president, but it's 1,027 words in the Constitution, all right? So depending on how things go tonight and how chatty you are and how much time we have, we might think about or hear about what some of those things are that the Constitution says that the president is actually responsible for. Because that's one of the questions that we have. By doing these interviews with folks from across the U.S., we were trying to find out, what do people actually think the job of the president is? All right, so we will hear about some of that this evening as you hear these interview testimonies. So this event was created by the Verbatim Performance Lab, which is affiliated here in the Program and Educational Theater at NYU Steinhardt. And this event and series of events is co-sponsored by the Department of Music and Performing Arts Professions here at Steinhardt, NYU Votes, NYU-TV, who are here broadcasting with us this evening, Braver Angels, which is a national depolarizing organization, and NYU's John Brademas Center. Inspired by its founder, former Congressman and NYU President Emeritus, the John Brademas Center of New York University pursues a collection of initiatives in the areas which form the core of John Brademas's life in public service. So John Brademas was also a senator, okay? And with a growing reputation as a home for informed and civil debate on politics, public policy, and other major issues facing the nation, we're pleased to have them co-sponsor this project and performance. So, and the Brademas Center has provided these U.S. constitutions that are floating around. So now you could count the words and know that it's 1,027 in Article 2. Okay, so we're also excited to have 3 guest respondents for this evening's event: Isra Ali, Elizabeth King, and Jonathan Nagler. Thanks for being here with us this evening. We really appreciate it, and we're excited to bring you on stage for conversation after we hear the actors sharing the testimony tonight. So the Verbatim Performance Lab uses performance and theater to answer larger questions about civics, society, culture. And so the question for this evening is, what do people living and working in the U.S. think and feel about the U.S. presidency during the 2024 election cycle? All right. And so there's a side part to that question, which is we also did interviews in 2020 and 2022. So you're going to hear 10 transcripts this evening, 4 from 2024, 3 from 2022, and 2 from 2020. And part of what we're interested in is there any difference? How have people changed the way they talk about the presidency, if at all? All right, so just as we move through these, we'll see if that's the case. For the current year of interviewing, we've interviewed about 70 folks from across the US. They volunteered to be part of this project. And tonight, again, you'll meet 4 of those folks that we interviewed. We have 5 actors who are going to perform these 10 pieces for you. So if you could please give them a warm welcome. They're going to come out on stage right now so we can meet them. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm just going to ask you to answer on the spot. Okay, so your name, please?
Noah Jackson.
And where are you from originally?
Middletown, Delaware.
And where do you live now?
New York City.
Yes. Yes. And what do you do for a living, or what's your current vocation?
Okay, I am a senior with Tisch Drama. I'm in musical theater. Right now I'm on an academic semester studying psychology and business entertainment.
Excellent. Okay. And Noah, what is your earliest recollection of a U.S. president? Name that president and your age at the time.
2012, so I would have been 10. Barack Obama.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Noah. Stand by there. Name, please.
My name's Ashley.
And where are you from originally?
I'm from Southern California.
And where do you live now?
Brooklyn, New York.
Very nice. And what do you do for a living?
I teach acting, and I'm an arts administrator.
Excellent. And let's see, what am I going to ask you? Where do you plan to be on Election Day 2024?
I'm going to be a poll worker for New York City, so shout out to all the incredible folks who make our elections happen. And there's still time to sign up. They still need folks, so it's really exciting way to just give back and be part of the community. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay. Name, please.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And where are you from originally?
I'm from the Dallas area in Texas.
Where you live now?
I live in Brooklyn, New York.
Lots of Brooklyn. Okay. And what do you do for a living?
I'm an actor, and I also work as a union organizer.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. And Scott, one relational identity that you have, a way that you are in relationship with others.
I am a dad.
Great. Thank you. All right. All right.
Hi, I'm Dan Tuttle.
And Dan, where are you from originally?
I'm from upstate New York, Orange County.
And where do you live now?
I live in Manhattan, New York.
And where were you on Election Day 2020?
Oh, God. In my bed, curled up in a blanket, yeah.
Great. Okay. Excellent. Perfect. Okay. And
My name's Avril.
where are you from originally?
I'm from Albany, New York.
You know the next one?
I live on the Upper West Side.
Okay. UWS. Okay. What's your vocation, or what do you do for a living?
I'm a graduate student in the program in educational theater, and I'm an actor and a stage manager.
Great. Dan, what do you do for a living?
Oh. Well, I'm currently a senior here at NYU, studying English and theater education, and yeah.
Sorry, I forgot that one. Okay. And where do you plan to be on Election Day 2024, Avril?
Voting.
Good answer. All right, excellent. Let me switch my card here. Okay. Great. Okay. Now it's your turn. Okay. You have a job now as the audience. All right. So if the two of you could grab that board, please. Right. Okay. So I said that there are 10 transcripts in play this evening. The actors have seen the 10 transcripts. We shared the 10 transcripts with them about 48 hours ago. The transcripts have been anonymized. So the actors do not know anything other than the content of the transcript about who is speaking, all right? And so they also do not know the order that those transcripts are going to come in. You are going to help us choose the order right now, okay? So down the left-hand side of this, that's the left, right? The left-hand side of this board are letters with numbers, okay? So these are the years of the pieces that are in play. The actors are going to deliver these transcripts in 4 different combinations, as a solo, as a duet, a trio, and a quartet. So they're going to make these combinations backstage and come out and read them for us in real time. So I have 5 trivia questions. I'm going to ask these trivia questions and ask you to answer. If you get it right, you get to choose 2 of these letters and position them into this pattern. Okay, so you are helping to choose how this will unfold. All right, so the first question. All right. Baby Yoda's name was revealed in 2020. What is it? Yes. Grogu is correct. Thank you for that. Well done. Okay. So, could you choose a letter and say where you would like it placed on the pattern?
I'm going to go with D, and I love it in the middle of T3.
Thank you. And you get a second one. So, could you pick again, please?
Yeah, I'll do C, and I'll do that at one of the Q4 slots.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Excellent. Avril, you're on top of it. Okay, next question. How many medals did Simone Biles win at the 2024 Olympics in Paris?
4.
Where'd that come from? Thank you, Jack. 4 is correct. Well done. Excellent. Could you make 2 choices, please?
E in S1. And then I in the first T3 slot.
Awesome. Okay, here's the next one. Who was named... No, this is better. Which song that was first released in 1985 became a hit again after being featured on Stranger Things?
Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush.
Well done. Excellent. Boom. Okay, very good. Could you please choose 2, please?
All right, J in the first slot in T2, and A to finish out T3.
Excellent. Okay. Which foreign language film was the first to win the Academy Award for Best Motion Picture in 2020? Yes, that is correct. Well done. Okay, choose 2, please.
Let's do G in the last D2 spot. And F, Q4.
Okay. Now, by process of elimination, we could make this work, but we're going to do one more question because I'm having a good time. Okay. So, who was named as the new CEO of Twitter in 2022? There you go. Okay. Excellent. Maybe I should have skipped that one, but okay. All right. So, very good. Okay. Thank you all for participating in that. We appreciate it. Well done. We can roll that off the stage. Actors, you can join Keith off stage and get yourself sorted with your transcripts. Okay, so while the actors are getting ready, I want to explain something to you about how they're going to read these transcripts. So when we are transcribing an interview with someone, we transcribe in a very specific way, and we call that scoring a transcript. And so these transcripts look more like poetry on the page. So if we can go to that slide. And so basically, every time someone takes a pause when they're speaking, we hit return on the keyboard. So we're used to seeing someone's testimony in in prose or a paragraph. This is what the actor is going to see when they pick up their transcript. And so they will sight read it like a musician sight reads a piece of music, right? So for example, this might sound like, I think that as someone who has worked in politics before, someone who teaches US government, there is a desire or a default position right now that people have to avoid these conversations because politics has gotten so nasty. So it's really trying to find the cadence of how someone speaks, all right? And so part of the reason that we had the actors introduce themselves is so you could hear how they speak. Now you're going to hear how they speak based on a scored transcript, all right? So, and again, these are anonymized. So they've read the content, but they haven't heard the interview, nor can they see any kind of identity information about the participant. So you all participated on a poll at the beginning of the evening on your smartphones. So I'm curious to get a little bit of information about you. We heard from the actors. Now we're going to take a look at some of this polling data. So if we could bring up the information from the polls. Yep, great. So we were having a little bit of a cutoff here, but we can see that 26 to 34 is our primary percentage here, 29%. And we are on a college campus, so that might make sense, followed by 35 to 44 and 19 to 25. So that is and that also reflects folks on the live stream as well. So could we go to the next survey data, please? So this is about how folks identify politically, all right? So we have 29% at extremely liberal, 46% at liberal, 17% at moderate, and 7% conservative, all right? So that tells us about the demographics in the room and political viewpoints. Could we go to the next slide, please? 51% of us are attending the live performance, 49% are watching the live streamed broadcast. So we're about even, which is really exciting. And let's see. All right, we might be changing how we do this in the future. Okay, so these are listing where folks are located. This question was, where are you watching from the live stream? Los Angeles, Manhattan, Brooklyn, right in the middle of the audience. And so these are Greenwich Village. So these are populating here and letting us know where folks are watching from. Illinois, I just saw pop up. New York City, this is great. So this software is capturing all this data. China, Shanghai, Illinois. Actually, I know that Illinois person. Hi, Sammy. Okay, excellent. Honolulu, Hawaii, excellent. All right, so this software is capturing this data, and we'll be able to look at it afterwards to see where folks are tuning in from. So, great. All right. So that we needed to buy the actors a little bit of time, all right? So you're going to continue participating throughout the performance using that polling software, all right? So keep your phones nearby. This is the only show in New York where we're asking you to keep your phones nearby, okay? And after we hear from the actors at different points, we're going to pose a polling question to you, all right, and ask you to answer, and that's going to help seed some of our conversation, all right? So we're ready to go. So would you please welcome our first actor out on stage, Noah. Okay, so the actor is going to give you the title, okay, of this transcript piece and then deliver, all right? So, Noah, whenever you're ready.
This is, I don't know when I became so cynical. I'd want to ask them why they went into politics. But not originally. I guess what motivated them. And I pretty much would guess that everyone would say, I wanted to serve people. But I don't believe that would be the truth. So I'd want to ask a lot of politicians, and sometimes I think it's even on a local level. I don't think their motivations are maybe even what they think they are. I think a lot of it is the pursuit of power. So I'd ask that question, maybe to see if I'd find a politician somewhere that would answer truthfully, or what I think the real truth is. I would not. I don't think there is a truth meter. How would I know? The way I put this forth, it's honestly, it sounds like if they give me the good answer, like the Pollyanna, I wanted to improve my town, or I wanted to improve my country or the rights. I'm going to assume that's a lie, because I think everyone does it at the beginning. Not at the beginning, but maybe as they go, for purposes of power, but that's so cynical. I don't know when I became so cynical. I don't like that answer. The honest answer is, I'd have no idea if they were telling the truth. I don't know how you ever know unless you have facts that can prove it and it's something objective.
Thank you, Noah, very much. Okay, so Noah has an envelope that will reveal something about the person that you just heard from, all right? But before we do that, we would like for you to answer a polling question, okay? And that polling question is, what word or phrase stands out from what this person just shared in their testimony? So you're getting a polling question to your phone, all right? And as you listen to that testimony, a word or phrase that stuck out for you as you listened to Noah deliver that person's testimony. Word or phrase, 30 seconds. Maybe we can see the results. Have you, you should already be activated and in the survey still. It should still, is the, huh. Interesting. Is it activated? Yeah. Can you refresh? Still goes to the survey. This is like the Jeopardy music playing right now. Does it work for you now? No. All right. So words or phrases out loud that potentially that came up for you as you were listening to Noah with that testimony. Cynical. Power, cynical. What did you? Objective truth. What else? Lie. Is that what you said? Lie? Yeah. Okay. Skeptical. Okay, excellent. Realistic. Pragmatic. Pollyanna. Yes. Okay. Noah, can you open the envelope, please, and share with us the identity?
So this was Mary, who is 63 years old. This is from 2022, and they live in New Jersey.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just as you think about that, maybe who were you imagining as you were listening? And then Noah has just offered some information about that person. And just to say, the identifier that's offered is the identifier that the interview participant selected when they were being interviewed. So sometimes you hear a name, sometimes you hear a description, sometimes you hear anonymous, all right? And so that information is controlled by the interview participant, okay? All right, Noah, thank you so much. We'll move on. I apologize about the polling software. It was working before. Something's happening, so we might try it one more time, and if not, we will move into just having a conversation. But anything that was surprising for you when you learned this person's identity or where they were from or the time period? They're older than you thought. You thought they were younger. Okay, great. Anything else? You thought it was a man. Okay, is there a reason why? Okay, okay. All right, got it. All right, thank you. Are we ready for the duet? Okay, this is where we start to do the tricks, right? Because they're like weaving this together on the spot. So actors, are you ready? Great, let's do it. All right, so please welcome Ashley and Scott to the stage.
So this is titled, My Life Probably Wouldn't Change That Much.
This is more united, states.
I think I sit in like such a place of privilege because while living in California, number one, being a white woman, number two, who has, means, who lives comfortably and has job security. Like, I often don't think that there's a huge political impact on my day-to-day life, right? Except, maybe taxes, things like that. But I work with an immigrant population in Oakland, and so I do see how policies affect the families that I work with on a day-to-day basis, and I see
more united, states. I would like for us to, I've never liked the saying, I don't look at someone and see race. I think it's kind of ignorant to say that. I think we need to look at others, acknowledge their race, and see where it is, what obstacles that may have gone through in life because of that, and move forward and see that it is that we're the same person. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and we all deserve the same rights. So I really would just like for everyone to equality for all.
And then of course, I think environmental issues obviously affect us on a day-to-day basis, although it's so hard to quantify, like, what a president does, how that directly affects our environments. But obviously, during the Trump years, there were all these regulations were relaxed, and all these things happened, and the EPA had got less and less power. So obviously, all those things affect my life personally, and the wildfires in California and all the things that are happening. It's like hard to say that you could directly link that to the president. But obviously, policies and things affect climate change. But yeah, I feel like I'm very aware that even if Trump got reelected, then my life probably wouldn't change that much. And I know that for a lot of people, it would, right?
And for all of this nonsense violence to stop, and I would just like a world where I would like my kids to be safe. And just a world where I could even bring kids into, and just make things. I know it's hard to say just make things better because that's a very broad statement, but just kind of clean up the environment if we can. Climate change is very bad right now, so acknowledge that is a thing that is going on, and let's rectify that if we can. The science is out on it, it's real, and let's just move forward with that and do as much as we can to make this earth our home and take care of it and take care of the others that are here with us for this time.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, great. So that actually felt like a dialogue, back and forth, right? So that's a random creation. We're gonna try the polling again, all right? So let's see, so fingers crossed. Aggie's gonna send you a polling question, and it's this question here. Which viewpoint would you most likely encounter at a family gathering? Which viewpoint would you most likely encounter at a family gathering? All right, and so let's see if you are still getting, I'm looking up at Lauren, you're still getting the survey. Okay, Aggie, can we put that QR code up? Can we go back to that slide? We're gonna try to reboot you with the QR code, all right? And see if that works. So there you go. Perfect. All right, let's see if this helps. The reason I'm asking you to reboot is that the live stream folks are not having the same issue, so I'm a little confused. They're responding seemingly fine, and so it's something about still not working. Interesting. All right.
We're getting we have a few results from the live stream, so I'm
Okay, before you do that, hold on. Before you do that, could you reveal your identities, please?
I think I figured it out. So if you click the home button, it takes you to join presentation. Put VPL election 2024. That takes you to the question that's up.
Okay. Aubrey, could you say that one more time, please, for us?
So at the bottom of, like, it says recent presentations and everything like that. You click home. It's on the bottom left. And it brings you to join presentation. And
Great.
the VPL election 2024.
How are folks doing with that? That's helping? Okay. Aubrey, well done.
MVP.
You get it. I'll find a T-shirt or something that you get at the end, okay? Or a new car, okay? All right. So do you want to take a second and vote, lodge your polling response there? Live stream folks, thank you. You're ahead of us right now, but we appreciate it. Okay. And Aggie, or actually, let's hear your. Okay, back to you two. Identity, please.
Okay.
Oh, the polling question is. Which of these viewpoints would you most likely encounter at a family gathering?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. This was white, Jewish female, 52 years old, 2024 in California.
And this was Taylor, 2020, fact check, from Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. You two can take a break. All right. Thank you. Yes.
We don't know. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Great. So, in terms of these folks, how many were these viewpoints? Would you find these at a family gathering? Let's see what you said. Could we? Okay. So Scott, 38%. Ashley, 38%. C, neither of them, and D, both of them. All right, so that's an interesting. Okay, Scott's getting a little nudge there. Oh, okay, right, we're caught back up. All right, so this is really interesting. Their viewpoints are maybe they sounded like they were in a conversation, so maybe that's some of the reason here. But then also neither of them and both of them is interesting also to think about. So. I think doing this live polling in real time allows us to sort of be in conversation with each other, even though we're not actually speaking to each other, but we're revealing information to each other. And also it allows our live stream audience to be participating as well. So let's do the trio, all right? So we're going to see another trio, or a trio, 3 transcripts in conversation with one another. So let's bring out Noah again, and Avril and Dan, please.
This is yin and yang.
This is, I'm not looking to vote for the most Christ-like.
This is same as always.
Don't get me wrong. Trump says a lot of stupid shit. If I could hit a mute button, I would be helping him out greatly. But I'm an actions, not words type of guy, and there's been a lot of stuff done that's benefit everybody. I'm in a much better place now than I was 4 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, so I disagree with the idea that, he's not about reparations, right, for black folks. And that's just a strange thing for me because black people in this country have been paying taxes for a long time and have had to pay into other reparation-based efforts for other groups of people, right? For Japanese Americans who are put into internment camps, right? For Indigenous Americans, right? And not even saying that there's been enough reparations for Indigenous Americans. Let me be really clear with what I'm saying, because I think that there's more that they deserve. But the activities that have taken place thus far, black people as taxpayers have paid into.
Same as always. Same as it always is. Oh, you got people on the left and people on the right. cheering for their side and trying to make things happen the way they think things should happen. But I don't think it changes all that much.
I mean, and you asked about, after the next 4 years, I just wonder there's such a focus on hating him from the other party that when that goes away, where do they put that energy? Do they pick somebody else to hate? Or, I think that party needs to be kind of exercised. And exorcism tend to get him back to being the Democrats. Don't get me wrong. I obviously I lean to the Republican side, but I do believe for a yin and yang, that one side ever in power for too long is not a good thing. They get fat and happy and sassy and start doing the radical ideas. That's why as much as I hate losing an election here and there, I think it's best for the country.
And it's always so fascinating to me when it gets down to Black Americans, and they're the, we can't possibly pay reparations, and I'm like, well, wow, this is just so strange, because not only have you guys paid reparations in the past for other groups, we've also paid into those reparations as people who are also seeking their own. And so any time that people or candidates are like, no, I don't agree with reparations, or we are not going to talk about that, I call bullshit. And I'm just like, no, you're not from, Bernie really almost lost my vote in that moment. I really had to go, there's more to his platform than just that, and those things that he's talking about will still be helpful to more of the people that, work on behalf of and alongside in this struggle for true equity. And, hold them accountable, bite the bullet for the moment, but hold them accountable, and don't, gotta silence yourself, which, I'm not looking for. I'm not looking to vote for the most Christ-like, candidate. I'm looking to vote for someone that's actually going to make a dent in a good sense, in people's lives. So, yeah, I don't agree with him, but I don't agree with any politician that says reparations for Black people is a non-starter. I think that's cowardice.
From time to time, from decade to decade, we hear that the two sides are at each other, more than ever. But if you think about the Vietnam War era, or when Bush took us into the debacle of Iraq, you had two sides going at each other. And now isn't any different. So how would I describe it? Just same as always.
Great. Thank you. All right, so we're going to ask you another question. Which of these three folks do you agree with? Okay, so we're going to give you the option to choose. All right, you should have the poll question. Fingers crossed that it works this time. Thank you. Okay, great. We're now halfway through. We're cooking. And if you take a second to make a choice, all right? So again, we're giving you the actors' names there in the poll, but it's who they're reading is who we mean, all right? So who are you agreeing with in this moment? And let's go ahead and have you reveal the identities that are in your envelopes, please.
This is Neil, year 2020, located in Wisconsin.
This was African-American man, 35, from 2020 in Pennsylvania.
This was Mike from 2022 in New Jersey.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. You can take a break, a short break. Thank you. And let's look at the results of the poll, Aggie. All right, so 42% with Avril, 21% with Daniel. So Avril was from Pennsylvania, my fault. Wisconsin, and Noah was from New Jersey. They're the folks say. And then I don't agree with any of them, which we thought was an important option to offer people to have that choice. All right, anyone want to share why they agreed with the person they agreed with? Bill?
I think that I agreed with Noah. I feel like
there's always a political divide. We think there isn't because there's a coat of paint, a veneer of respectability that at times is more observed, and at times the performance of respectability is just not adhered to as much. Sometimes it's just, we're always divided, we're just playing nicer about it.
Thanks for that, Bill. Appreciate it. Anybody else? You want to move on? Okay, we'll move on. I get it. Okay, all right. So are we ready to do the quartet? The actors are ready. Okay, I thought I was going to have to buy a lot of time for them, and they're way faster than me at this point. So, okay, actors, why don't you come on out for the quartet? Ashley, Dan, Avril, and Scott.
This is I Remember Being Impacted by Obama.
This is The Sun is a Great Thing, but next week it'll be gone.
This is the best bang for the buck that this country gets.
This is Closeted Republicans.
I was taught United States history during middle and high school in my school. So we actually dedicate a whole year in high school to U.S. history from the very beginnings when the Native Americans were still there and England started to colonize the territory all the way to, that was probably 2008, 2009 when I was studying this. So kind of a short version of the almost 500 years of history. And at that moment, it really shaped me because it was 2008. The elections were happening between Obama and Bush.
I think I was inspired by Reagan because I was an opponent of communism in the Soviet Union, and I thought that his policies were correct, and I think with hindsight they proved to be correct in terms of ending that era. And I felt that his rhetoric was up to the task. His rhetoric was quite inspiring. And in fact, I can even remember from that incident where I went to Roosevelt Raceway to hear him speak in 1968, and he said at a time when basically everyone of every stripe was convinced that the Soviet Union was with us forever. He said at the time that the Soviet Union is a dark chapter in human history whose last pages, even now, are being written.
Well, I have to say, John F. Kennedy, I went into the Peace Corps, and so I just thought that his it was probably later I was inspired by him. Anyway, probably more by Jackie than by Jack, but I just thought it was a beautiful presidency. It was youthful, and he was passionate. He seemed passionate about what he was doing, and then of course when he suggested the Peace Corps, I was on board from before I was old enough, or smart enough, indeed, educated enough to go. But I did begin applying in the middle of college, and I finally got accepted about a year after I graduated.
My best friend and I were raised very similarly with parents who are like a little conservative, don't identify with the Republican Party or anything. Actually, but both of our parents are sets are independents to the core. And we were, getting drinks, and we were like, we never really talked politics. And my friend is like, oh, you're a politics major, you probably know so much. And I'm like, I feel like I don't. But we were talking about the election, and we ended up making this group chat that was like, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like Closeted Republicans, as a joke. You're literally not Republicans, but it's like sometimes we feel like when we're talking about the election and actually voicing opinions, obviously we don't support Trump or anything, but it's these two candidates just feel so not representative of anybody in the country for real.
So I remember studying the like current events part of the history class was really paying attention to what was going on because it was an election year. And because in school they were so like, the teachers really wanted us to be paying attention to the newspapers and paying attention to what we were seeing on TV, and then we would come back to the classroom and talk about it. I remember being very impacted by Obama, like his speech, the way he spoke, I don't know, it like inspired respect. So I never had like a formal political opinion on like US government parties, especially first things. I mean, Puerto Ricans can't even vote for president, but at that time I remember being like very impressed with him. So when people would ask me, oh, like, who do you want, like, who's your candidate? I would always say Obama. But at that point I didn't even know the implications of the Democratic Party. It was more like an affiliation to the person himself than to what he stood for, basically.
Which I thought was not only a beautiful phrase, but also it was very brave and counterintuitive to say. It'd be like saying, you know, the sun is a great thing, but next week it'll be gone. Few people would say that, and if you did, you'd be regarded as mad, but he said it, and he turned out, of course, with hindsight, to be correct. So that was something that was inspiring. I think since then, there have been few occasions when presidents have been inspiring, to me at least, in part because the times are different. There aren't the great challenges that there were in those days. And although they try to make it seem as though those challenges are still as great, and secondly, because the way in which they've spread themselves over every issue has diminished them, I think, in terms of their stature and their ability to inspire.
Well, when you vote with your feet, you know, when you actually leave your country to serve your country, you know, you have a lot of trust in the ideas of the people who started the Peace Corps. Now, I went on to serve my 2 years in West Africa, a place that I'm still involved with. Have a lot of affection for. But I also went on to lead the National Peace Corps Association because I think, briefly, that the Peace Corps is the best bang for the buck that this country gets. I like the idea that we're starting with the people on the ground to let them know who Americans are, and we're helping them with whatever their challenges are. We aren't coming in with the cookie cutter solution to extreme poverty. That we're asking them what it is they think will help them make their lives better, and then we try to deliver it. And of course, I was lucky enough to serve in Liberia, which considers itself an offshoot of the United States. It is. It's kind of had a very sorry beginning, but as a nation, it's you know, it's struggling, but it's got some pretty high ideals, and I actually know the current president, so I'm all in. Still all in.
And we were talking about that, and it's just like, but sometimes when we feel like we voice that to other people, we come off as like Trump supporters, which we are not. So we were just like having a conversation about that and like how polarizing it is. And this literally stemmed from a conversation about like our upbringings and like, because she was asking me who I was going to vote for, and I was like, well, I know who I'm going to vote for, but like it just, both of these, all of the opinions feel weak and like don't represent how I feel about politics in this country. And it's just like really disappointing. So that was a conversation we were having, literally at a bar, just randomly. Like, yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we are going to give you a polling question on this one. And so it's going to come up to your phone. And this one is, which of these four folks would you like to have a drink or a cup of coffee with? Okay? Who would you like to continue a conversation with? And so if you could lodge that response in your phones, which of the four would you like to extend the conversation with? Yes. Could you, actually, yeah, Ashley.
Dan.
Avril.
Scott.
Sorry, I got very kindergarten.
Ashley, I'll say
Yes.
my name too.
Yeah, sorry. What time is it?
Yeah.
It's past my bedtime.
It's the witching hour.
Yeah,
8:25.
witching
It's all
hour.
done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Aggie, could you show us the results, please? All right, 40. Daniel, you're very popular. Okay. Avril.
Avril,
You're,
no.
Okay. All right, Ashley, 16%. Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. It's in real time. Okay. Got it. All right. Can you reveal can you open your envelopes, please? Yeah. Why don't we'll go this way, right to left.
28-year-old woman in 2022 in Puerto Rico.
Pat in 2024, located in Virginia.
Mimi in 2024, located in Delaware.
70-year-old Stephen in 2024, location New York.
Great. Thank you very much. Noah, can you hop out here, please? Are you still back there? Yes. Could you give the actors a round of applause for their work this evening? Thank you. All right, great. You can take a break. You get to take a break now. I got to keep going, but you get to take a break. Okay. Okay. So could we come back together? And I'm going to do some introductions. Okay. So thanks for that. There was a lot of energy in that. Appreciate it. As I said, we have some respondents here this evening with us, and so I'm going to introduce them. So all the way to my left and on your right is Isra Ali, Clinical Assistant Professor in Media, Culture, and Communication from NYU Steinhardt. Isra, thank you for being here. And next to Isra is Jonathan Nagler, Faculty Co-Director of the Center for Social Media and Politics, Professor of Politics, and affiliated faculty at the Center for Data Science here at NYU. Thank you for being here. And to my immediate left is Elizabeth King, Vice Dean of Faculty Affairs here at NYU Steinhardt and Professor of International Education and Politics. So thank you three for being here very much. And so the first question that we thought we'd start with is, which of those voices that you heard this evening in the 10 most resonated for you?
Do you want to start at this end?
Yeah, that's great.
I think, is this on?
It's,
okay.
Yep.
I think the one that, interestingly, the ones that, what I noticed was there's a lot of cynicism in New Jersey, apparently, about politics in general and the future of politics, a lot of same old, and cynicism. So maybe as a New Jerseyan, I also relate to that, that cynicism. But I actually, I found the ones about Trump compelling because of the way in which people were talking about supporting Trump as something that they have to negotiate in their lives with other people, and they seem to be very, very aware of how polarizing it could be. But also the one about the young woman from Puerto Rico who had that impactful kind of experience with Obama really resonated with me because I had a similar experience with Obama, but also resonated with, I immigrated to the US when I was 12, and I came when Bill Clinton was just being elected president, and I watched him play saxophone on Arsenio, and I saw the inaugural ball on MTV, and I thought, oh, this country is going great, like everything's going to be fine, right? And that, I think the energy of the Obama moment for me sort of was matched that moment. It reminded me of that Bill Clinton moment. I'm old enough now to have several moments. So I think those things sort of resonated with me.
Great, thanks.
And I think the thing that struck me the most was when someone talked about what the election mattered to them. Did this make a difference for them? Because in some sense, that's a fundamental question about politics we think about when we think about how are people going to vote. And for lots of people, it's just, does this make a difference to me or does it not make a difference to me? So to me, that was like, okay, this person is right on target. They're looking at this election and they're being very honest about that's what is motivating my decision. And then we heard someone talk about, well, this thing really won't matter to me a whole lot. I'm just fat and happy, doing great. But yeah, some other people are kind of going to get screwed here maybe. And that was also like, okay, again, pretty honest. So these people actually talking about the considerations that went into their vote was like, okay, really blunt answers about this.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, just in response to both of what you said, and then Elizabeth, I'm going to come to you, is, so often when we see a piece of performance, it's a fictional representation of something, right? It's fiction. These are real people who've shared their real thoughts and opinions with us, and I just, as I listened, I think part of the reason that I get moved by listening to them is that people will say really honest things to complete strangers, right? And I think sometimes we underestimate how much listening to a complete stranger allows them to share back, right? And so I appreciate both of those points you've made. Elizabeth, I'm going to come to you.
Well, sure. I'm going to give you the answer. You're not complete strangers, and I'm still going to give you a truthful answer. That I think the one that resonated the most with me was the yin and the yang, the Trump voter who was explicitly Republican and had a statement that was about believing that you have to switch points of views every once in a while, and right, transition in government was a good thing. And I think it resonated with me because that piece struck out to me as familiar, but so much else that was being said didn't. And so I had this feeling of listening in a way that I might not have done otherwise. Mm-hmm. The other thing maybe that resonated with me was your first question when you said, after the first performance, who was I imagining when I was listening? Mm. And I thought, I wasn't. I was imagining that person talking. And it was only when there was, this speaks to your point about they're ordinary people, right? Mm-hmm. It was only when there was a disjuncture, when someone referred to Pollyanna, suggesting to me they were older than maybe the body that was saying it, mm-hmm. or was referencing Vietnam, was I having these moments. But otherwise, I just believed them as them. Mm-hmm. And that surprised or resonated with me as well.
Great. Okay. Good. And that's part of that kind of like waking up moment of that disconnect or disjuncture that you describe is why we sort of ask folks to read the way we ask them to read, right? Because it forces us to lean forward and listen a little more carefully. So thank you for that. I'm curious how your own work or research sort of resonated with what you heard this evening, either from these folks or how we're sort of doing this, any pieces of the performance that resonated for you with your own work. And Isra, if you want to start again.
Since we had our conversation and since I've seen the performance, I was thinking about it both in terms of my research. So I do research on reporters who report on stories from war zones to audiences back home, quote unquote, who may not know much about the war zones that they're reporting on. And I thought about the ways in which we convey testimony and the ways in which we convey stories. And one thing that I really enjoyed about the way this is sort of organized is it's a novel and different way of doing things. So you hear testimony out of this kind of normalized kind of context in which you expect to hear things, and you really don't know, right, who it is that's talking, so you can't necessarily sort of apply all this narrative that exists that we do when we read sort of journalism about people's testimonies in other places. And then I teach courses on social media, and just today we were chatting in class about how, when you're online, you don't have a physical body and people represent themselves. And so we have this sense of, potential deception online, people not presenting themselves as who they are. And here, that kind of cynicism kind of goes away a little bit because first of all, you get to experience in person what happens when different people are parroting the words of other people or saying the words of other people. And then you get to sort of put aside the question of like, does this person's words match what they look like, or what are they actually saying? And do I actually agree with what they're saying? And surprisingly, I think you might find more room for agreement agreement or commonality than you might expect than if you are judging sort of in relationship to bodies matching with words and statements.
Thank you for that.
So I spent a lot of time looking at public opinion data and also even like reading verbatim survey responses to questions like, could you name a policy that Trump supports that would make you better off? And so to me, what was interesting here is that, no, that's not what happens when you actually talk to people. They actually tell you things like, hey, as I said before, like, I was made better off. Like, okay, end of story. We're not going to talk about, is that because of the fracking policy? Is it because of, the Green New Deal? It's just, I was better off. End of story. And I think it's really important to see that because when we sit here and if you're in a liberal audience, you sort of wonder, how on earth could somebody possibly vote for Donald Trump? It's like, no, they'll tell you why they voted for Donald Trump if you just ask them what they think about politics. And so I think this sort of resonated with that like, yeah, if you ask people why they're doing what they're doing, they're not crazy. There's a reason that this is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that, because I think what you've just said has repeatedly played out in this interviewing process, that when folks are given the space to speak and people actually listen to them, that they will share reasons, right, rather than just a soundbite. So, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you. Going third, I can harness all of these ideas. So I had sort of a methodological answer and then maybe a more substantive answer of how this fits in with my own research. So methodologically, this really shone a light to me on why it's so important to have qualitative research, right, alongside quantitative research. And so much that we hear during an election cycle or about politics generally is at a very high level where you're hearing, perhaps that an enhanced version of the polls that we were doing, that 49% of the population supports X or thinks Y. And it's this unpacking that we don't get to do. And we're working through the news so quickly and scrolling and multitasking that it's really a treat and such an insightful treat to be able to listen to one person and understand that they are one person, but have this complexity and nuance. And so as someone who does both quantitative and qualitative research, right, there was that aspect just of appreciation of having a moment to hear a more complete answer than we might structure in our political surveys. And then substantively, some similarities with some of the work that ISRA does is I am a scholar of peace and conflict studies. So like many of you, I would have liked to talk to our Peace Corps person in Liberia. And actually, I believed him so much that I was sitting there going, I should get his number. I have a project in Liberia. So there was such a disjuncture for me in understanding this. But as someone who studies peace and conflict studies, I've spent a long time working on things like constitutions and peace agreements and formal education. And more recently, in my newer project, I'm moving to these spaces that I now appreciate as so powerful, but so often overlooked. And these are the cultural spaces. So I'm beginning to look at food and sports and learning from folks like Joe, the arts, right? And thinking about how these cultural spaces can help us change the stories that we tell about ourselves and other people. And this was just such a vibrant reminder about the power of the arts as well.
Thank you for that. And
mic drop.
Yes, well done. I think we've talked about Elizabeth's work in these cultural spaces, and I think those are also spaces where people free up to talk about issues that they might not necessarily talk about in other spaces, right? So I'm curious, and I'm going to ask all of you to think about this as well. How do these voices impact the way you think about the role of the president?
I mean, I think that's a really interesting question, because one of the things I sort of noticed is that no one really talked about the role of the president. They either talked about the character or an individual president that they liked, or issues that they were concerned about or themselves. And I think when you were asking the question earlier, how many words are in the Second Amendment, I was embarrassed that I didn't even know, right? And so we so often don't think about the presidency in an abstract kind of way of what the role or the office is. And it's become so attached to particular personalities that it made me wonder, what would it take for us to think about the office of the president as an actual concept that isn't attached to, memories of particular presidents or iconography or symbolism or particular historical moments. And if that sort of cult of personality thing was taken away, what would we consider more or think about more in terms of the presidency? And then I was wondering, what do I think the president's job is, right? And it alternates between thinking, the president is really just a figurehead who's not really going to be able to do anything, to why doesn't the president fix everything, right? And why can't the president be in charge and change everything and make everything better? And so it's an interesting kind of dynamic that I think tells us a lot about the media environment we live in and how we think and talk about the presidency, which is really often to solicit us as consumers rather than as citizens who are thinking about the office of the presidency and the Constitution and what we're trying to do. We are often solicited as consumers, as fans almost, right, as teams, to be a member of a particular party or pro a particular candidate, rather than to consider what the role itself is sort of about.
And I want to emphasize I'm not from New Jersey, but I want to add to the cynicism of the night. I mean, one of the things that we notice about voters, remarkably robust finding, is they pay attention to results, and they have no real concept of, okay, what does the president do? They haven't read the Constitution lately. They forgot what they learned in their intro American politics class a long time ago. And so they don't get it, right, what could the president possibly control? And so we've seen time and time again that if the economy's okay, the voters are like, yep, the president must have done a good job. Do they know how much influence the president has on the economy? No, they don't. I mean, it's a hard question. And so we go back to Trump's first term, and he lost. But why did he lose? Well, there's a strong argument he made that had he not botched up COVID, he would have cruised to a second term with no problem. And even if he did a good job on COVID, he might have, lost, because COVID was a tough problem. So I think in terms of what people think about the presidency, they don't. I mean, they know there is a president. They know stuff happens. Exactly why it happens isn't clear. They see some very clear decisions. If the president decides, I'm going to send the fleet somewhere, or I am or I'm not going to decide, hey, attacking Iraq would be a good idea. They notice that, but very little otherwise. If you ask people, can you name something Joe Biden did as president? That's a tough ask. Most people have a lot of trouble with that. We ask that, can you name a policy that he's done? They have a hard time with that. So I think, I'm not surprised the answers don't go into detailed policy and things. It's just not what people think about in terms of the president.
And Jonathan, can I ask you a follow-up question, because I'm curious about, if you looked at data from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, would that be the same instance?
That is a robust thing that Americans are not big on process. But for a long time, the state of the economy, the state of things, has been a solid predictor of how people are going to vote and how they're going to evaluate. Again, they evaluate performance based on outcomes.
Right.
So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Last again.
Sorry. I'll try to change it up. Yeah.
Well, I'm an optimist. But there was a lot of cynicism in those interviews. So the researcher part of me wanted to know what question was being asked that they were responding to. And so in performance number 4, when the person who is this farthest on our right started talking about inspiring, I wrote it down because it struck me. It was sort of the first time in the conversation, we were in the last performance, that we were hearing something optimistic and shiny. And then in the magic of somehow the way this random theatrical choice was made, the last quartet was actually quite optimistic in contrast to the rest. And we heard a beautiful presidency, someone who inspired respect, a beautiful phrase, brave. And that was surprising to me, that came out, I think says a lot about where we're at in thinking about the presidency.
So that is one of the prompts, is about it.
So that's a little disappointing, right? Like,
Yes, but yes. I mean, but it is. We ask in the interview protocol, we ask a question about inspiring, and then we ask a question about, have you ever been directly affected by the actions of a sitting president? And those responses are sometimes also quite interesting, right? And so, but we don't choose pieces based on whether they answer a prompt. We choose pieces based on that overarching question about the presidency, right? And so it kind of depends on how the person answers the inspiring question. But it is, we did not ask that question in 2020 or 2022, so it was interesting that there was, in that final quartet, 4 of the responses were from 2024 and 1 was from 2022. So somehow that question, that someone responded in 2022 around being inspired by a candidate. So maybe that would make a little optimism.
There you go.
Right, a little optimism. I'm gonna come up, what about you? What about, how do you feel? Yeah, I'm gonna come to you, Adam, with the microphone.
Well, building a little bit on what Isra was saying, I found it really interesting that when people talk about presidents from the past, regardless of political affiliation, it is actually more about the president, the person, right? Whether it's Reagan, and I think the policies were good in terms of containing the Soviet Union, or Kennedy, or even Obama at this point. But when people are talking about contemporary presidents or candidates, it does become more about the voter, right? It is less about policy. It's more about, how do I feel? Are my needs being met? What do other people in my community feel that's different or the same than me? So I thought that sort of historification of the presidency and how it changes the way we talk about it was a really present and also very interesting component of this tonight.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Yeah, Bill.
You've mentioned the 2 of the questions you've asked. Can you say a little more on the questions you did ask, or how, I guess, yeah, just that.
I was afraid somebody was going to ask that question because that means I have to try to remember all of them. So we asked folks how they learned about the U.S. Constitution, because to get at this point, I'm part of the reason I asked you a follow-up is that 300 words of that 1,000 are really about what the president does. There's one of the sections of Article 2 is entirely about the Electoral College, right? So there's the actual article itself has not that much about the president's duties. It's more about the voting, right? We also asked the 2 questions that I said. We asked about in the inspiring question, we asked a president or presidential candidate because we were curious what folks would say. Keith, help me here, or Becca, you were nodding. Oh, okay.
I got you covered. So we talked about earliest memory of an election of any kind. So going about, because we're in an election year, primary responsibility around the president of the United States. Describe your political upbringing. And then a recent conversation you've had about the upcoming election. And then you talked about moments where you were inspired, a moment where you questioned the actions of a sitting U.S. president. And if you look 3 years into the future, what do you hope the president will have accomplished? Were the core of our questions.
Keith Huff, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Yes. Keith is the associate director of the lab, and he was working with the actors backstage to make those combinations work. So, and then he just saved my butt right there. So thank you, Keith. Any other comments or thoughts about that? Yeah, Meredith, please.
I was just thinking about how much I conflate TV presidents with I've just been rewatching Madam Secretary and like thinking about like what, and so in listening to this, it's like, well, okay, are these the values that I've learned from TV and movies about presidents that have informed what I'm hoping for in a leader, like this idealized version, or is it actually like what I've learned from the leaders that I have watched growing up, right? And so, you know, this overlap of like pop culture TV leaders versus pop culture TV leaders that we're also seeing, right? So.
Thank you for that. I think that's an interesting thing to think about how, again, the media sort of depicts this role, right? And how do we find a way to interrupt those depictions, right? So even in this conversation, I feel like we're interrupting some of those assumptions we might make. I'm going to ask you for a parting word before we wrap up. So each of you, like, if you, you're going to do one more polling question, so have your phones ready because we're going to do one more. But as we sort of move into the next 6 weeks, right? How does having had this experience in this conversation this evening, maybe like what's one thing you're leaving the room thinking about?
Well, first, I'd like to say that my president is Bill Pullman in Independence Day, and forever and always. He knows how to come through in a crisis, very calm. I think the going into the election from the summer on, the presidential cycle is too long. We should not be having 2-year-long campaigns for the presidency. So my nerves were shot by the time September rolled around, because we've been talking about it for so long. And strangely, this has actually been calming and a little it's brought down my anxiety a little bit, because as you were saying, there is people have their own internal logic for why they make the decisions that they make. And if you spend too much time on the platform formerly known as Twitter, that goes away. You forget that people have an internal logic and that they're rational. And you start to think that people are just making decisions for very irrational reasons. But when you hear people out and you get to hear people talk about their experiences in their lives through other actors, and then you hear people responding, you realize it's actually not quite as fraught as you thought it was. And so I will be slightly calmer today, and maybe go home and watch Independence Day to calm myself completely.
Love it. Thank you.
So I think what I'll be watching for coming out of this till the election is what I was going to watch for anyway, in some sense, which is just, I would love to see the world go from memes about Kamala Harris to actual policies so that people could talk about, oh yeah, this is what will actually happen if this woman is elected, as opposed to, that's a cool color green. So that's what I'll be looking for.
Okay, great. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll just be looking for more opportunities to listen, because we are so busy and we get everything in these little snippets, and this was just such a treat to have a moment to sit and reflect and really listen. So my closing word is also one of gratitude to these super talented actors who presented tonight, and then to Verbatim Performance Lab, of course, for you and for Keith and for the whole team. And we're so lucky at Steinhardt that you're doing this.
That's very kind of you. Thank you for that. Can you give a round of applause to our respondents, please? Great work. Thank you so much for the time. And also, just there's a few other people I want to make sure that we thank, and then I want to let you know about a couple things that are happening. So I want to thank our co-sponsors again. I also want to thank our house staff here, Drew, Phil, Nick, who helped make this happen today. We really appreciate your help. And also our team from NYU-TV, amazing job. Thank you for collaborating with us. Aggie and Ryan for doing all the technical work there. Keith, thank you so much, and the actors. I think I got everybody that I was supposed to say there. We have 3 more performances of this coming up, and this was the first one, so I promise you it'll be smoother each time we do it going forward. The next one is fully online with Braver Angels on September 26th, which is a super exciting collaboration. We're really happy to be doing that, this work with Braver Angels because of their mission around depolarizing and depolarizing our society, if possible. Then October 10th at 5 p.m., we're partnering again with NYU Votes to do a performance here on campus with students. And at that performance, we're going to be looking at states. So tonight we looked at 2020, 2022, 2024. In that piece, we'll make sure that all of those pieces will be from 2024 from different states. And then on October 21st at 7 p.m., we're going to do this in a bar. Okay, we're partnering with Braver Angels again, and we're going to do this in a bar to see what a social setting brings out with folks. And in that one, we'll be looking at political party. So we'll make sure that we're distributed evenly as we can across political affiliation, okay? So those are coming up. And then on top of that, we have had partners across the country who have committed to doing this in their communities. So we are, and many of them are on the live stream tonight watching to get a sense of what they've actually signed on to do. So we're looking at possibilities in Los Angeles, Kansas City, Fort Lauderdale, and actually potentially in other parts of the world as well. So we're really excited to continue this dialogue that we've been having around this so that when folks go into the voting booth or when they get their ballots, they can actually be thinking what it is they want to see in an ideal candidate. And that's our final polling question for you. So if you could please bring up your phones one more time. We're going to ask you to write in 3 words that describe your ideal presidential candidate, okay? And as you do that, it's going to populate on the screens behind you as a word cloud, and you'll be able to either snap a photo of it as you leave, or I'm going to email it to you tomorrow, all right? So that you have it as a point of reference when you go to vote, all right? What this group of folks came up with this evening together. And there you go. Great. Thank you for that. Have a good rest of your evening. Folks on the live stream, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And thanks you all for being here. And we'll talk again soon. Be well.